In this video, I'm going to cover how to finish off the stakes, create a rim, and lash the rim for this market basket. Hey there, welcome to the Basket Weaving with Textile Indie channel. My name is Brittany. We are finishing off this basket. This is a market basket that we did. You can find the instruction manual in the description below for purchase if you want to follow along with this pattern. The other two videos are also linked in that description as well. We also have the full workshop and manual in our Textile Indie Collective, which is a monthly membership where you have access to a growing library of workshops, printables, and other resources in fiber arts and basketry. And this is one of the baskets in the collective. The first step we're going to be doing is cut and tuck, which is folding down the stakes and cutting some of the stakes. So if you did the cross stitch napkin basket, this is very similar technique that we did in that. If you are just starting out in basketry, I'll go over quickly how to do cut and tuck. So first off, you want to spray down the stakes so that they're nice and pliable. And I'm doing this right along that top row of weaving. I'm going to do that inside and outside to make sure that they're nice and pliable. Allow this to sit for about 15 seconds before you start folding. While you wait, you can come in and on the overlay pieces, we're going to come in and cut these at the level of that last row of weaving. So I'm going to cut this right here so that it lines up with that top row of the 1/2 inch wide flat. We're going to cut these off all the way around. Now on all of the pieces that are in front of that top row of weaving, we're going to come in and fold those over. And then we're going to come and all the pieces that are behind that top row, we're going to cut flush with that weaver. Now using a straight tip packer, come into the inside of the basket. You're going to fold over a length and I want you to cut these below the last row of the 1/4 inch wide right here. So I'm going to measure down, cut this to that length, and then take your packing tool, lift those 2 rows a 1/4 inch wide away and tuck this behind those rows. So that now that's tucked inside and from the outside it's folded over. You can't see it here on the outside because it's tucked straight behind that stake. And you'll do this for all of these stakes until you've made it all the way around the basket, cutting them to length and then tucking them behind to hold this in place. This step secures this top row of weaving to ensure that the basket holds together. For the rim, you're going to need the 5/8 inch wide flat oval reed and a piece of seagrass. Put your rim reed in the water bin to soak for about 2 minutes. We want it to soften up so that we can wrap it around our basket. And then grab your plastic clamps. These are what we're going to use to hold the rim together. I like using the plastic ones because they have a nice space that doesn't leave marks on the rim reed. You'll also want a box knife for trimming down the ends. So once your pieces of reed have soaked, you can set your basket aside, and I have 2 lengths here that will wrap around the basket at least one time with some overlap. You want to make sure you have at least 2 inches of overlap. And now I'm going to come in and on each end, I'm going to trim down the rounded side of this reed, trim it down so that it mimics a flat reed thickness. I do one end of each piece. And then we're going to take these guys and from the outside, I'm going to put the ends on the ends of the basket. So the cut or trim down section, we're going to clamp this over that top row of weaving. So covering that top 1/2 inch and feed this around so that it sits nice and snug against the basket. I put a clamp in per wall or side to make sure that this stays put. Like so. And then when you get to the end, you want to come in and with your scissors, right where that trimmed down portion is, you're going to come and cut to bring this piece to overlap. And I cut it so that this trimmed down section where I brought it down to a flat reed, this ends right at that curve of where I started trimming. And then I come in, I straighten this out a little bit, and I curve this in so that I end up with more of a round tip than a blunt flat tip. I think this looks more purposeful, and so I like doing this on my basket. It also mimics the curve of that trimmed section, so it looks like it fits more snug. So I'll put the clamp over those 2 ends. So there's one of my joints, and then I'll take the other piece and I'm going to curve this other piece inward so that the rounded side can be facing the inside of the basket. So just do a little training to curve this around, and then take the rounded end here, or the side that you trimmed down here. Clamp it into the inside opposite of your first joint. So my first joint's over here. I'm going to start on the other end and then feed this in to the basket like so, making sure to press this up against the edge. You want enough reed, but not too much. You don't want any bubbles, but you also don't want any gaps. So feed this around to the inside, moving the clamps and replacing them to fill that space all the way around till you get to the end. And then the same thing here, you'll trim this down. You can taper it if you want by cutting off those corners. I'm going to leave this one blunt because it's inside the basket. You don't see it as much. And then there's a channel between the two. You're going to find a piece of seagrass that loops all the way around. And with the piece of seagrass, I'm going to tuck this alongside the handle and feed this into the channel. It's not going to stay put. I just want to get it to sit on top there. When we do the lashing, that's when we'll be able to cinch it in place and hold it in place. You just want to feed it around to make sure you have a piece that's long enough to go all the way around the basket and hold it in place somewhat. And then I'm going to cut an inch beyond my end so that I have just a little bit of a tail. And I'll throw one more clamp in here to hold this in place. And that is setting up your rim. For lashing, we need a piece of 1/4 inch flat oval reed that wraps around your basket 2.5 to 3 times. So I've got about 2.5 here. I'm going to coil this up and stick this in my water bin. I want this to soak for about a minute. We're going to be manipulating it a lot, so allowing it to soak and become nice and pliable is really key. You'll need your straight tip packer and a pair of basketry shears. We're going to do a basic lashing, which means a whip stitch in between each set of stakes. So there's a space under the top row of weaving. If you lift up the rim, you can see that top row. We're going to lift or make a space between these two stakes and put a stitch in between each of these stakes under that top row of weaving. The seagrass is going to sit right on top of the cut and tuck section. We're going to squish this nice and tight together to try to cover that area up and have the seagrass fill that gap so that it covers those raw edges. In the cross stitch napkin basket workshop, if you took that one already, we did a 1/4 inch wide at the top beat inside the rim, which meant that we were kind of digging the seagrass out a little bit to make sure that it sat on top because there was a gap. For this one, because we have the 1/2 inch wide as that top weaver, we don't have as much wiggle room, which means the seagrass is going to sit above the rim rather than in between. So having it poke up a little bit is okay. That's natural for this basket. We do want to try to sandwich these close together so that it closes any gaps and we can't see the cut and tuck raw edges as much. So we're shooting for that in this basket. I'm going to turn this guy and start on the left side of the handle. We're going to start here using a little loop to start out with. So grab an end of your weaver or your lashing reed, and with the rounded side facing up or against your finger like this, we're going to send this just around the inner rim piece. So tuck it between the inner rim and the basket and then loop this up around the bottom edge so that it sits like this, fold it up, and then take this end and send it back between the basket and the inner rim. So we're creating a loop around the inner rim. Pull on both ends so it's nice and secure. This end is just going to hang out inside there for now. We're going to take this end and start the lashing. To lash, you're going to set your basket on its side and grab your lashing reed so that the rounded side is against your thumb. Pull this through your hand, making sure that the rounded side stays facing up against your thumb through the whole length. You don't want it to get twisted, or when we pull through, it's going to twist up and cause a corkscrew effect, which causes breakage and problems. So then, holding this with my thumb and forefinger so that it doesn't get twisted, I'm going to come in between this stake here and this stake here, put my packer between those two rows, and send this in there so that it goes around all the rows. The outer rim, the basket itself, that top row, the inner rim, and the seagrass, and then I'll pull through. Pull nice and snug, And I'm pulling straight out from that space, not up. Up is going to cause the reed to break. If you pull out, you can pull tighter without it putting as much strain on the reed. So then you'll flip this over, glide this through your thumb, forefinger again, keeping that rounded side against your thumb, like so. Switch hands, grip that in your other hand, and let's go into this next space. This space right next to the handle, we're going to pull through and pull nice and tight. You can position where you want that stitch to go and then pull nice and snug, trying to get this seagrass to cover up that cut and tuck section. Pull tight. And now this next one, we're going to go on the left side of the handle. So pull this through. We're going across the handle like this. So I'm going to thread this through my hand again, keeping that rounded side facing up. I'll move this clamp over a little bit. Go in from the left side. We're going to cross over and go into the right side of the handle to this space here. Pull through. Pull tight. And now I like to do a little X motif over the handle. It adds security and it also looks nice. So my seagrass is sitting to the outside. I'm going to cross over, and this space on the left side of the handle, we're going to do another stitch into that space. So send this through your hand to keep that rounded side up. Send it into the space on the left side and pull through so that you have a little X around that handle. Now from behind, we're going to pull nice and tight to make that secure. We're going to pull this from behind and send another stitch to the right side of the handle in the same space as what we did before. This just mimics that left side. We have 2 stitches here, 2 stitches here, and 2 stitches here. Pull tight here, and then continue working around the basket, putting 1 stitch per space between stakes. So you come in with your packing tool, make yourself a space, send that in and pull through. Like so. You can move the clamps out of your way as you go. If you crimp or pinch with your left hand, it can be easier to pull tight with your right. You're doing equal amount of work with both hands. Now you're going to do a stitch in between every stake, so every space between stakes should have one of these whip stitches. If you run out of reed, you'll do a loop around the rim and splice in a new piece by creating a second starting loop like we did the first starting loop with a new piece of reed. So work around until you either need to put in a new piece because you've run out, or you are at the end and ready to finish off this length. When you get back to the beginning where you started, there's this little gap where we did that initial loop. I like to do 1 more stitch into the same space over that first loop in order to close that gap up. So I'll just place this next to or on top of that first stitch, and that tightens that up so that it's nice and tight and hides the cut and tuck a little bit more. Then I'll take my packing tool, send it into the inner rim so that the tool comes out into the basket, and then follow that tool with my piece of lashing, the 1/4 inch wide, and pull this into the basket. Pull tight so it's looped around that inner rim, and then both of these ends I'll cut down to about 1 inch. And then you can tuck these in or let them hang out, whichever you prefer. I usually let them just hang out, but if you want them secure, you can come in, tuck them under the rows inside the basket. So hold them tight. And then before we're finished, come in and trim down any seagrass lengths that went beyond the far edge of the row that they were on. If they're sticking out a little bit too much, you don't want to cut down too much because you need that to hold it in the basket, but if there's excess, you can trim those down. Congratulations, you've completed your market basket. I'm super excited for you. I'd love to see photos. You can tag me at Textile Indie on social media. You can join our email list and get updates on basketry content and other fiber arts. There's a link in the description below to sign up to our email list where we send updates, resources, and coupon codes for basketry supplies and other fiber art information. You can also respond to those emails with photos if you want to share your work with us. We'd love to see them. And like this video because it lets us know that you like these videos and lets YouTube know that you like these videos so that it pushes it out to more basket weavers. Thank you so much for doing that. That's a huge support of our channel. Check out this video for more basketry fun. And until next time, happy weaving. See you later. Bye.